I proposed to my fiance in August of 2024, and I thought the hard part was over. Turns out trying to plan a wedding is probably harder than finding the person you want to marry. Okay, not really. But planning a wedding is hard, and figuring out the best option for you can be pretty stressful. The average cost for a wedding in the United States is about $35,000. $35,000. Do you know what you can buy with $35,000? Here's some things. So when I saw that the average cost was $35,000, I had to take a step back and talk to my fiance and figure out what's the best option for us. Because it didn't really make sense for us to spend that much money on a wedding when we'd rather spend that money on many other things, whether it be our honeymoon, a vacation, or just simply investing that. So I'm going to walk you through some of the choices we had, what we ultimately ended up deciding going with, why we did, and walk you through the journey in some upcoming videos on us selecting some of the options all the way up until the wedding date. So immediately after I proposed, the first question anybody asks, when's the wedding?
When's the wedding?
When's the wedding? When's the wedding? Hey, congratulations, man. When's the wedding? I had no idea. I didn't even think about this because I thought it was something that me and my fiance would plan together, which it is, but I didn't think it would need to be planned that fast. So when we flew home, I proposed in Miami. When we flew home from Miami, we started to lightly look into some things, see what was going to make sense with us, where we wanted to get married. My family is mostly here in Colorado. A lot of her family is mostly in California. So location-wise, what works best. So we started going down that line. And the first place we started was a wedding expo. And these wedding expos are giant money grabs. I don't know if I want to say a money grab, but you know, they are a collection of different businesses, different wedding type businesses, different boutiques, even venues related to your wedding, so they can help you select things that you want, show you samples, show you things and templates that other people have used, and ultimately help you find what your dream wedding or ideal wedding would look like. Walking through, we met different photographers, different DJs, different venues. Everything really kind of showed how expensive this was ultimately going to be. Most things started with a 4-digit price tag, going up to 5-digit price tags for individual items such as photographers, dresses. Obviously the venue, most venues start in like the $15,000 to $20,000 range. So just your venue alone can cost you over 10 grand. So that was pretty mind-blowing for me because I was like, how can a space be so expensive? But that's the industry, that's the wedding industry. It's kind of big business. Maybe we should open up a wedding venue. I've thought about it. Stay tuned, maybe. So after we've tried a few samples of cake and tried some food samples and talked to many different booths trying to win various things, nothing really caught our eye, but we made it to the destination wedding booth. And my eyes actually lit up because one thing my fiance has always said was her dream wedding is a wedding near the beach or near the water. She loves the beach, she loves the water. So I was like, wow, this may be a great opportunity for us to do something like that. Because here in Colorado, we don't have anything like that. Obviously, we're landlocked. And in California, the price of anything like that, I don't even want to talk about it.
Broke nigga alert, alert.
We met with a couple booths, and one of them specifically had an option at what's called Oceans Hotels. It's in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. They had a pretty wide selection of destination wedding options. I'll put a screenshot up here. And they range from anywhere from $1,000 up to about $10,000. So for me, I'm like, man, some of these other things are $10,000 just for the venue. If I can pay $10,000 for the entire wedding, sign me up. Now, there's some other implications to having a destination wedding, and one of the main ones being you put a lot of the cost on your guests. If you have a wedding in your hometown and not many people have to travel, they don't have to pay for anything. Maybe they have to rent a suit, or maybe they need to buy some whatever, a gift. You know, that's kind of the only cost they have, and they just show up. Whereas a destination wedding, people need to pay for flights because that's not something we would pay for. They have to pay for their own flights. They have to pay for their room at the resort where the destination wedding is. And then ultimately other fees associated with that, right? So that could be airport parking, that could be getting their passport, that could be, you name it. These are all costs that we now push on to our guests. So definitely a downside of a destination wedding. But for us, we decided we want to do something that makes sense for us, something that we enjoy. We do care about our guests, we care about the expenses we put on our guests, but we have no hard feelings or no weird feelings for people who just say, I can't make it, it's not in my budget. So going back to the destination wedding booth, we got in contact after the wedding expo. We got in contact with the person we met at the booth. We had an introduction call, kind of walked through the options, what it looks like to get started with this, and also the cost that would be required from our guests. So at the resort we selected, we were able to basically pick the wedding package that we wanted, which was the top wedding package that was $9,500. This was not total cost. It could be total cost if you only have 50 guests and you don't want any add-ons. And we invited about 117 people, knowing not everybody would say yes, but that means that we'd have more than 50 guests. So for every guest above 50, we have to pay $60. So the cost will increase from $9,500. And also, my fiance is not doing no add-ons. But we want to make sure, and I want to make sure she has a wedding that she remembers for the rest of her life, while also not breaking the bank, and this is kind of a happy medium for us to do that. So to break down some of the initial costs we have to pay for this destination wedding, the first thing we did was we reserved 50 rooms. With the destination wedding package, we actually have a travel agent we're working with, and they're able to block off 50 rooms for us, but we have to put a $100 deposit on each room, so $5,000. So we initially had to put a $5,000 deposit down to block off 50 rooms for what we assumed would be about 100 guests, plus or minus some extra rooms if needed. But our deposit locks these rooms in and gives all of our guests time to put their own deposit down and pay in full for their room before the wedding. So that's a cost we had to front. Once people pay for their own room and or decide they're not coming, we actually can get refunded that deposit money, and or it can go towards our cost of the wedding. So that's the first big cost we incurred. The second one was a $500 deposit to the resort for the wedding package. We had to do this to lock in our date, as well as start to get in communication with the resort's wedding planner, which unfortunately you actually don't get to interact with much until about 2 or 3 months before the wedding. So that's kind of a downside. My fiance was looking at a lot of options. She had a lot of questions. Obviously, we're going to a place that we've never seen. We're going to maybe have food at our wedding that she hasn't tried. So this is kind of a big leap. So she has a lot of questions, and unfortunately, you don't get to interact with your wedding planner until about 3 months before the wedding. So something to keep in mind if you want to do one of these kind of cookie cutter weddings, destination weddings at one of these resorts, is they're kind of churning these things out. They do maybe like 3 or 4 of these a day, probably like 5 or 6 a weekend. So it's not going to be as personalized as if you go to a venue and you sit down, you have that whole venue locked out for the day. Sometimes you have it for half a day, whatever the case, but you're not going to have as intimate of a planning session and experience with these resorts as you would with a traditional venue. So something to keep in mind if you're making this decision. The way we're getting around that actually is we're going to do what's called a site visit. We are getting a discounted rate to actually go to the resort, spend some time there, try the food, look at some of the options, look at the venue that we selected. Maybe we decide we don't like it. Maybe we see one we like more. Well, this gives us the opportunity to make those decisions, see how we like things, see how things look, see how things feel, see how things taste. Now, the resort that we chose has pretty good reviews. It's rated a 4.7 on Google. But if you look through some of these reviews, you can also find some pretty questionable reviews, and also specific reviews about the restaurants there, not necessarily reviews about the entire resort. So we're a little iffy on how much we can trust these reviews. Obviously, our travel agent has spoken very highly of the resort. He says he travels there often, but we're going on our own site visit to really confirm, is this somewhere we want to have our wedding? We're looking forward to bringing you along. We're looking forward to showing you the process, what it looks like to have, plan, and be involved with a destination wedding, specifically what it's like to have a destination wedding at Oceans Resorts. And honestly, you know, some of the cons that may come up as well as the pros. You know, the biggest pro for me as a financial conscious person, and this being a financial channel, is the cost. If we can have this wedding in full with only coming out of pocket, you know, $14,000, $15,000, that's a win for me. If we end up paying the same amount that we would have paid having a wedding locally, you know, it probably won't be as great because we'll be sacrificing in other areas. So come along as we figure out, is it really worth it? Is this something that actually does save us some money while still letting us have a wedding that we remember the rest of our lives? Or is it something where we kind of got sold a dream, got a little carrot dangled over us, like, look how much money you can save, psych! And then we end up spending just as much money? We'll find out. We're headed to a site visit next week, and we're looking forward to sharing a video about it with you all. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tune into the next video. Peace.